Taxation, General Government Operations, and Youth Development now convenes this hearing. In accordance with the Open Government Law, public notices for today's proceedings were sent to the media on September 23, 2016, and again on September 28, 2016. For the record, today is Friday, September 30th, 2016, and the time is now 3:04 in the afternoon. The committee will hear and accept testimony, both oral and written, on the following items. Bill number 285-33, introduced by Senator Frank Aguon Jr., an act to add a new Article 7 to Chapter 77, Division 2, Title 12, Guam Code annotated relative to tax credits for the rehabilitation and improvement of the Harmon Industrial Park roadway. Bill number 330-33, introduced by Senator Frank Aguon Jr., an act to amend subsection 3207 of Chapter 3, Article 2, Title 11, Guam Code annotated relative to alcoholic beverage control licenses. Bill number 337-33, introduced by myself, Senator Nicolas, an act to amend subsection 1 of subsection 22425, Article 4, Chapter 22, Title 5, Guam Code annotated relative to ensure full funding of educational programs and facilities appropriated from the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund. Bill number 339-33, introduced by Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr., an act to amend subsection 26110.1 of Article 1, Chapter 26, Title 11, Guam Code annotated relative to the electronic filing of business privilege taxes. Bill number 370-33, introduced by Senator James Espaldon, an act to add new definitions to the Guam Secure and Fair Enforcement for Mortgage Licensing Act of 2010. And we have a nomination today of Mr. EARL GARRIDO. Mr. GARRIDO, yeah, there he is, to serve as a member of the Cockpit License Board for a term of 1 year. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge my colleagues present. To my immediate right is Senator Frank Aguon Jr., and to my immediate left is Senator Tony Ada. Thank you, Senators, for joining us this afternoon. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and dispense of the nomination of Mr. GARRIDO first. That way we're able to get his testimony on the record. And then from there we'll proceed on to Bill 285 and the rest of the agenda thereafter. So, Earl, without any further delay, please join us. Good afternoon, Earl. You've been nominated to serve as a member of the Cockpit License Board for a 1-year term, and it will require confirmation by the Guam Legislature. We have received your official nomination and packet from the governor who has nominated you. So whenever you're ready, please go ahead and provide any statement on your behalf.
Well, I really don't know what to say, but when I was first approached, I felt flattered. I've always had the need to serve the community. I retired from GPA in 2005, and I think I can still put forth an effort to help out the community wherever it's needed.
The Cockpit License Board is responsible for kind of overseeing and regulating not just the cockpit activities, but also a lot of gaming activities as well. Have you taken the time to familiarize yourself with some of the gaming activities on Guam and some of the statutes that regulate them?
No, not yet. I was actually waiting until I find out if I was going to be approved or not.
Okay. Well, the committee is going to need just a reassurance that you have, of course, familiarize yourself with the laws that are going to be under your jurisdiction as a board member, because it's going to be part of your responsibility to ensure that those laws are all being followed with respect to all the entities that are conducting business underneath your jurisdiction. The board also has a lot of approval authority for certain types of activities. They are also responsible for issuing out the licenses and authorizing their renewal, for example, for the cockpits. So it's going to be very, very important that you definitely review those things. And so in light of what you shared with us this afternoon, we'll move forward your nomination after you've met with me in my office and we've validated that you have a very good grasp of what those laws are going to require you in the position. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments for Mr. GARRIDO?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. GARRIDO, thank you for extending yourself to the community and accepting an appointment by the Chief Executive, by the Governor of Guam. I have to echo the statement by the Chairman in regards to this. the sense from approving a nominee and supporting a nominee is making sure that that individual understands the nature of what he or she is about ready to delve into. And the Cockpit License Board certainly has a tremendous responsibility. I recall back maybe about 10, 12 years ago when there was a situation that existed where several cockpit owners and individuals that wanted to venture into the same arena apparently had some serious differences. And it was the decision ultimately of the cockpit board that either rendered a decision or just did not render a decision in regards to that situation. And it really deals with an area in our island that sometimes becomes somewhat sensitive in terms of recreational gambling. So I encourage you please to get yourself familiar with the responsibilities of this particular board, meet with the chairman, and give him that assurance, because aside from knowing that you came from GPA, knowing some of your background, and knowing full well that you sincerely want to serve our community, you have my support based on what the chairman would recommend, because really it's getting that assurance that you know and understand the nature of what responsibility you will be owning up to as a result of serving our community and our people in this capacity. So I encourage you to do that. The sooner the better, because I think that would give the chairman the opportunity to place your nomination on the floor at the earliest date. Okay, Mr. Garrido, so thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Aguon. Any of my other colleagues have any questions at this time? One of the, I think it was the first law that I passed, Earl, was actually a law that would require our boards and commissions to be, every single new member has to also go through an education program. So not only is it important, I think, for you to familiarize yourself, but even after we've done that and we've had the discussion, you're still going to go through a formal education program that the agency is now by law required to produce for all board members. So you can rest assured that you're going to get a very thorough impacted learning environment for all of this stuff. But did you have any closing remarks that you wanted to make before we go ahead and conclude the hearing?
Well, the only remarks I want to make in regards to what I'm being told right now is I'll try my utmost to do my best. And like I said, it's my desire to try and serve the community as best I can. I may be retired, but I'm not out of it. I still feel that I can really give back to the public because I've taken a lot from being in service with the government, and I think I can return a lot also with the experience I've had in the past.
Thank you, Earl, for accepting your nomination, and we'll go ahead and move this forward as we've discussed in the hearing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is, I believe, Bill 285-33, introduced by Senator Aguon. I'll go ahead and yield to the author for him to go ahead and make his opening statement on Bill 285.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I first of all want to recognize several individuals in the audience, just in general, who helped to craft, came up with this wonderful approach in terms of being able to rehabilitate one of our primary roadways on island. And what it is a number of businesses came together at the Harmon Industrial Park area, and they were seriously concerned about, and the questions were raised as to why the Harmon Loop or Harmon Industrial Park roadway was not added, at least within the next 2-3 years, within the overall master plan in repairing roadways on the island. And they came up with an idea that if in fact all of these businesses were to come together in collaboration and were to partner with the government of Guam and provide upfront resources so that they can get the entire roadway, the primary roadway at Harmon Industrial Park, rehabilitated, because many of these businesses traverse that entire roadway every single day, if not once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. And not only is it, does it have a negative impact on the vehicles, not only is it an inconvenience because there are a number of potholes, not only does it get overflooded in certain areas when in fact there is a heavy downpour of rain, it's just a roadway that needs to be upgraded and rehabilitated and repaired and possibly expanded. So these businessmen and women came together and they asked, and they came up with this idea about partnering with the government of Guam, fronting some of the resources, getting the road rehabilitated, and over a course of a time frame, a reasonable time frame, in this case, as proposed in the legislation, about 4 years, that these businesses that contribute directly to this rehabilitation of this roadway would have an opportunity to take advantage of tax credits. Mr. Chairman, I do understand that we just passed the 2017 budget. I did discuss with a number of these individuals who are very strong, staunch proponents of this legislation, if they would be amenable to having it applicable into fiscal year 2018, and then beginning from the 4-year timeline from that fiscal year. And they are amenable to it, and I really want to just thank them personally for stepping up and offering to partner with the government of Guam, because they're going to partner with the government of Guam at no additional cost to the government, and they're going to front the cash to repair this much needed repair, not the road that needs much needed repair, and then allow for repayment over the course of 4 years without any interest applicable. So, and the interest here is the interest of the people of Guam. And obviously, it's only going to benefit the businesses that are there, the residents that live in the Harmon Industrial Park roadway area, and certainly all the employees that work in that area. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for having the public hearing on Bill 285, and we look forward to the testimony this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Aguon. We have 1, 2, 3, just over 3 sheets of people who've signed up to testify, all indicating in favor of Bill 285. We do have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 individuals who've signed up to actually provide oral testimony, and a handful of other individuals who've also signed up to provide written testimony. The written testimony will be included in the record of the committee report. As for the oral testimony, we'll go ahead and call forward the individuals who signed up to testify. I do notice 2 of our mayors, Mayor Luis Rivera, and once a mayor, always a mayor, Ms. Connie Dueñas. Ladies, please, we'll go ahead and have you 2 ladies first. Half a day, ladies. So, Mayor Luis, I think we'll make our senior mayor go first, right, Mayor? Okay. Auntie Connie, please, you're first.
Okay. My name is Concepcion Dueñas from the wonderful village of Tamuning, Tumuman, Harmon. And I got this sign. I live in Tamuning for 75 years. I'm 83 years old today.
Happy birthday.
It's not my birthday, but I'm 83 years old. And I'm here to testify in my heart, my eyes, how I see the Harmon Industrial Park. It's raining now. We can go out there and swim. And yes, I'm very happy. We have Senator Mary, Tony, and of course, the wonderful guy who is here today, as young as he is, to fix Guam, and happy for you. And of course, Senator Aguon. I can't forget him. When I pass the road, I don't know whose family is that, but their truck is there with his sign on. So how can I forget him? Even if I knock on his office for the parole board, sometimes he answers, sometimes he don't answer, but I cannot forget him because that sign is there. And so, Mary, you ever pass the Harmon Industrial Park? I told the mayor, if we go there, it's like a highway. Young or old pass there. And as I said, we can swim today because it's raining. We can jump over because of the pothole. And so it's time to do that. It's time to do this. And all I'm asking is do us a favor. And because there are many people taking that road, and for what reason, you know that it's never been fixed. I really don't know why, but with you people in there, Senator Espaldon, you just came in. Good afternoon. So please do us a favor, and not only for the people of Tamuning and Harmon and Tumum, but for the people that are passing that road. Do us a favor and fix that road. It's say our road, my own road, everybody's road. So fix them up. And I appreciate that. And if you do that, you got my vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Mayor Luis?
Good afternoon, senators and everyone present. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Thank you, Senator Aguon, for authoring this bill. I'd like to also thank Mr. Shimizu, Bobby Shringy, and all the wonderful members of the Harmon Industrial Park Association. This has been a long time need. For over 30 years, I've been affiliated with the mayor's office, starting out as a summer trainee, walking those streets back when there was just potholes and the old flea market was there, and coming in as a vice mayor, because that place has been neglected for a long time, we have decided to start the paving there in Harmon. So the paving that's done there today started when I was the vice mayor with Frank Bloss, who was the sitting mayor, and they ran out of money. They couldn't pave anywhere else or open up all the new roads that should have been opened. Every time we call for, opening of roads to people's homes, people's livelihood, there was no money to be found. Money was always going somewhere else. And so with this association, with Mr. Shimizu calling me to their meetings, I really appreciate all the hard work they've done in putting this together, coming together like this, not only for their businesses, but many residents that live in there, in the apartments, condos, homes that used to be in there. Now there are very few homes, but a lot of development. And we welcome new development for the good of our island. A lot of people go through there, they play bingo, they don't even live there, but they traverse through there all the time, many days, all hours of the day, all through the night. They're there, they go to play bingo. Trying to get out of there is so dangerous. And, as the mayor, it's hard to sleep at night, wondering what's going to happen, if how are they going to exit? What is the plan? How can we find a better solution? What can we do to make things happen? I'm also here today to convey publicly to everyone here present, everyone with the HIPAA, with the Harmon Industrial Park Association. I'd like to thank you for all that you're doing, not only for our community, but the entire island of Guam. This is a good bill. Thank you very much. And please see that it goes through. It's not touching our government's funds. They're all wonderful people who's willing to do this, and I stand behind them in support of it. Thank you very much. Cesar Sabasi.
Thank you, Mayor Luis. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments for this panel? Senator Aguon?
No particular questions, but thank you, mayors, for advocating for your village. I just want to wish the Mayor Connie Dueñas happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Thank you very much. Tom, thank you. Thank you to our former mayor, Ms. Duenas, and our mayor, Mr. Rivera, for your testimony. I wanted to afford time now to the two main advocates for the bill, Mr. Frank Shimizu, Senor, and Mr. Bobby Shringi. Please join us at the table. Thank you very much. Can you clarify? I think it's Mamzarz. Just double check that. Hop it in, Mr. Shimizu, please, whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Senators, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to make my written testimony very short, and I kind of just want to emphasize the term or the words all and everyone. And so here we go. Dear Senator and Chairman Mike, thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of Bill 285-33, an act to allow businesses in the Harmon Industrial Park to fix and repair dangerously bad roads and equally dangerous flooding issues. The amounts requested is very, very small. $1 million maximum per year for 4 years. This is less than 0.0013, in other words, 13/100th of 1% of Guam's annual revenues of more than 820 million. So, as an aside, somebody asked me the other day, how can you quantify 0.0013? And I told John, I said, John, if in the upcoming presidential election you put a wager and you bet on Hillary to win and you win $100, that amount that we're asking is only 13 cents out of that $100. He said, oh yeah? I said, I still don't understand. Well, okay, I'll give you another example. If you're also betting on the presidential election and you win $1,000 on Donald Trump, so all we're asking out of that $1,000 is $1.30. So therefore, it's not going to hurt anyone. That's my point. So, if I may allow me to identify the importance and explain a few of the major benefits that this bill brings to not only the residents and businesses in the Harmon area, but to every commercial vehicle and every automobile driver on the island. 1, when completed, it will create 4 good and safe ways to enter and exit the area. Currently, there's only essentially one way to enter and one way to exit. That is controlled by signal lights. And this is a must for trucks and other vehicular traffic. Second, the cost is reasonable. It's economical and pain-free. There is no need to borrow from the bond market, nor from a bank or from other financial institution. There are no interest or insurance fees, no commissions, no broker or finance charges. And most of all, the amounts requested will not break anyone's bank, not even the government of Guam's bank. Like I said earlier, it is less than 13/100th of 1% that we're asking per year. Third, the users or beneficiaries are not just the businesses and employees and staff working there. When finished, the entire population of Guam, all 170,000 plus, can take advantage of using alternate routes to get to and from Dedido, Barrigada, Mongmongtoto Maite, Tizan, Tuman, Tamuning, even Aguon. Traffic on Marine Corps will be less congested. There are many other benefits too numerous to mention. These will most likely be described and explained by others, including the two mayors earlier. I just want to highlight the above because of the benefits the bill brings to everyone, not just the businesses located there like ourselves. In closing, we, the more than 4,000 folks who work and some residing there, are grateful to Senator Frank Aguon Jr. for authorizing, introducing, and pushing this bill, and to all of the other senators who are supportive. Thank you very much. R.C. Masi. He's not here, but I do want to mention Vice Speaker Senator B.J. Cruz, because he came to me and half-heartedly supported this concept, this bill. And he said, Uncle Frank, as long as you do not touch my Healthy Futures funding, I think I'm okay with this. So please, he's not here. Please convey this assurance from us to him. Assurance that the Healthy Futures funding source would not be affected. Lastly, we want to thank the Chamber, the Guam Chamber, especially to the Chamber's Vice President Bobby Stringy for taking the time to come out here and support this bill. And lastly, and most importantly, to all the Harmon Industrial Park Association members for their assistance. As you can see behind me, despite the fact that it's raining cats and dogs out there, there's still a good turnout, I think. Thank you very much. Lastly, I just want to pass around some photographs taken recently that, that addresses the reason for this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Shimizu. We'll make sure to include the copies of the photographs as well into the committee report as an official transmission. Senators? Any of the members of the panel have any questions or comments for Mr. Shimizu? Senator Aguon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I believe he had some additional comments.
Mr. Shimizu, please.
Did you have additional comments? No.
One other comment is that it's really difficult to, it might be difficult to put out a vision of what it looks like in the area. It's almost like a ghetto. So I would be glad to host anyone here from the legislature to take a look at the area, and it's when the original formers of the association got together, somebody remarked, and I agree with him, that it's almost an embarrassment to take a off-island visitor or even customers from Micronesia to go out there and take a look at the Harmon Industrial Park. It's almost a misnomer to name that area a park. So I invite, I'll be glad to make some time and put some resources to taking you guys to a tour of the area.
Thank you, Mr. Shimizu. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shimizu, thank you very much for your testimony this afternoon. I think your testimony really hit home in terms of it affects everyone here in the island community. I also just want to personally thank you also for advocating for this legislation and coming up with this proposal with the other HEPA members, because not only are you allowing the government to possibly, should this pass, and I anticipate that it will pass with the support of the legislative members, that here's a different approach, and you highlight it. No special fees, no charges. It's not going to bankrupt the government. If we're looking at allowing the business owners to free up some of their funds immediately so that we can repair this and rehabilitate this particular roadway that would ultimately benefit the businesses there, the employees there, the residents there, and the rest of the island community, I think it really speaks volumes in terms of how this would approach it. So I want to just personally thank you very much, and to all the individuals who are visiting your Guam legislature for the first time and seeing how this public hearing process proceeds, I want to welcome you because this is where your laws are passed. And the chairman has the wonderful opportunity to be able to share this entire format and this process with you so that you understand what your senators do in this legislature. So I thank you, and thank you again, Mr. Shimza. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Aguon. Any of my other colleagues have any questions or comments? Senator Espaldon, and then we'll go to Senator Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Shimizu, thank you for the testimony. I know this place very well. That's where I grew up, so I understand what the issue is. My questions, though, are more specific in terms of, I'm reading this here, what encompasses the Harmon Industrial Park? Because, I mean, it confuses me because when we talk Harmon Industrial Park, we normally talk about that area behind GTA, and that's the Harmon Industrial Park. However, in this legislation, then we start talking about, we're talking about Hamburger Road, which is different and apart, and I don't see any connection between the Harmon Industrial Park that we know and Hamburger Road. So I guess I'm just trying to understand what is the full area of Harmon Industrial Park that we're talking about.
Sure. Harmon Industrial Park, there are two main roads. One is called Hamburger Road. That is now has been given a numbered designation, so it's now Route something or other. I think it's Route 25. That, my understanding is that is, since it now has a route number designation, it's eligible for federal funding. So we were advised by Public Works that HIP, the association, should not touch Hamburger Road because that federal funding can be tapped for that. The other major road is Harmon Industrial Park Road, which starts from behind Kmart,
Right.
all the way up to Black Construction.
Right.
And at the end of the Black Construction area, you turn left, and there's a short route there that connects to Hamburger Road.
Oh, it does, huh?
Yes.
Guess I don't know it as well as I thought.
And so for us to go out to Marine Drive, once this project is completed, we have several alternatives to go to Marine Drive. We can go the main entrance where there's only one traffic light there, or we can go the HIP Road, connect with Hamburger Road through that short area there where DCK Pacific used to be and now it's Pernix, and go back to Hamburger Road and connect with Route 16 in Dedido. So now you have two exits, two ways to exit to go north to Dedido. On the other side, behind Kmart, we would like to connect the Park Road to behind the Kmart via the San Gil property
Yes.
in behind Kmart,
Yes.
connected with the road going through Home Depot to connect with the Airport Road, which in turn connects to Tizan. And now you can go back to Agana through Tizan or to Barrigada or to Mongmuto to Maite, or turn left and go back to Barrigada and go up north to Dedido or to Jonia, whichever you want. So, man, there's like I said, 4 ways to get out of Harmon Industrial Park that's got lights, signal lights eventually, versus only one right now.
I appreciate that. We start, and the other thing I need to understand is, now that we're talking a lot of those areas, what I don't know, and maybe you can enlighten us, is are there any encroachment issues or private property issues along where the roadway presently is? I mean, I had heard in the past that was one of the reasons why Hamburger Road per se, in this instance, was not able to move forward because of private property rights along that road. Do you know, Mr.
Yes.
Shimizu, is that the case?
You're absolutely correct, Senator Jim. This is only the beginning. I mean, I don't know that it'll be completed in 4 years. It's only the beginning, and this is a long process. It's taken us a long time to get to this point where we have the Bill 285 have a public hearing on it. once funding is identified, and so that the risk of those that are funding this bill from our own personal pockets, now that if Bill 285 is passed, that risk is mitigated. Now we have something in writing that says, go ahead and spend the money to improve your infrastructure. Make sure that you pass it through Public Works, pass it through GIDA, whatever, and other government agencies. But the longer process, I feel, is that we now need to get surveying done, get the engineering work done, the plans mapped out, so that if there are easement issues, and I suspect there are, I mean, we don't know, because when we go to the agencies in the government, they're not really sure where exactly the easements begin and where it ends. So that has to be done, and I feel that, to me, that's probably, it might take longer than the hearing process. You know, the determination of, are there any encroachment by the government? Are there any encroachment by the private industry? We don't know, and we're gonna try to do that. But this is the first step out of many others to come.
Which leads me then to the next question, because I understand, you know, again, just at a very brief look, I see a figure of $4 million, I guess, as the first phase. Is that correct? First phase?
That's correct. Maybe Bobby can answer
or maybe
that,
you
yeah.
can enlighten me. Is there a bigger amount that we're really looking at? Because what you're talking about really is all-encompassing to really fix up Harmon Industrial Park. And I understand the need, but I just want to make sure we understand what this is going to cost. I mean, right now it's going to cost nothing out of our pockets directly, but it does cost us in terms of tax credits.
Tax credits, that's correct.
Right. So in terms of trying to understand what the full impact may be, is there kind of a ballpark range that we're talking about to get to that final picture? And of course, that's absent any encroachment or easement problems, private property rights problems.
That's correct. Absent any other issues and any other discoveries, yes, I think 4 million would be sufficient. And even if we wanted to spend 4 million all at once, we cannot. It's impossible, because we cannot close any of the roads that the Harmon businesses use. You cannot. You're just going to have to work at it one lane at a time and leave the other lanes open for traffic. Otherwise, businesses will stop. Can't do that. Can't have that.
Okay. Is there a present, I guess a present initial rough draft of the roadways that need to be repaired? You know what I'm saying? In other words, I mean, we're taking a very generalized concept right now, talking about Harmon Industrial Park, and we're identifying $4 million. And I'm just trying to understand, is there a present, did somebody take pen to the paper and say, okay, we're going to fix that road, we're going to go that road, and we're going to do 500 feet this way, and we're going to go 20 feet, 40 feet that way? Is there any kind of plan like that?
There is a mapping in place that the HIP Association sort of put this little plan of action together, including the guesstimation of the $4 million.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, in the legislation, there is a section that says, in the event that additional funding is needed in the future, the HIB basically goes back to in front of the legislature to seek that opportunity to increase it in the event that is needed.
So right now, what this legislation asking for is more of a $4 million tax credits to be able to do this phase.
Sure.
And that's all. And then, depending on what comes next, then it'll come back before us to try to figure out. But in the overall scheme, right, instead of piecemealing it all right now and then finding out that, okay, we start phase one at $4 million and then phase two is $30 million, you know, it seems right to me to at least ask the question.
Sure.
Is there a comprehensive, bigger plan so we can understand what that real figure might be, the final figure might be, at least the ballpark?
Yeah. I don't think
Well, we won't know at this point until we do the surveying and the engineering. But if there are no additional issues or no additional discoveries done, problems down the road, I think 4 million is good enough.
Okay, thank you.
Because we're not intending to pave every single road, alleys, and so forth in Harmon Industrial Park. Just the major roads and the connectors to Hamburger Road and to Marine Drive and to the Home Depot area.
I appreciate that. I mean, there's a need. There's no doubt there's a need. But again, from the policy side, we just need to understand what the impact would be. And even though it would be paid for by private funds at this point, it's the tax credits that always, brings up at least some concern as to what kind of hit the tax revenues this item will bring in, and what kind of hit we will take on that one. And I think it's only prudent we ask. But thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Espaldon. Any other colleagues have any questions? Senator Torres?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Espaldon actually asked many of the questions that I was going to ask of you, and they were answered. But my only lingering question is, when the estimates were drawn up, was it done by the association, or was there some engineering expertise? I'm just trying to put my hand on why 4 million. And I understand the preliminary work that's to be done, but a lot of it would help drive that number, the surveys, and things like that.
We have to start somewhere. And we felt that this is one viable way to start, and without any any risk to any of the members. We can't ask any member to come out with their out-of-pocket expense and spend, for example, $50,000 on a engineering study and another $50,000 or whatever on surveying, without any assurance that these individuals, these businesses will get reimbursed. So we have to start somewhere, and this is why we're coming to you folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Any other colleagues? If not, I do have a couple questions. Mr. Shimas, and it kind of touches in line with some of the other questions that were raised earlier. My first question is almost in line with, recently we did the labor and delivery ward up at the Guam Memorial Hospital. And when they first came to the legislature asking for us to authorize the borrowing for that project, it was kind of the same circumstances. We weren't quite sure how much that project was going to cost overall. And so what we compromised with was passing a bill that authorized the expenditure first of the funds necessary to conduct the A&E, the architectural engineering. And then when they finished that, they came back for the second round of funding authorization based on the cost that we were able to identify with the completion of the A&E. And what that actually did was it gave us an actual hard figure for the total project that we were able to then comfortably move forward in the bond market. Because the original proposal was going to have us kind of go out for an amount that wasn't really fixed. And when they came back with the A&E, it actually turned out that they needed a very different figure. And so what I wanted to ask was, I understand that the bill is for a $4 million authorization request, but do you think that we could tier this instead and do an authorization for an amount necessary to conduct the A&E, and then after we do the A&E and it comes back and we find out the actual costing, then we can authorize the additional amounts going forward from there?
To me, any start is better than nothing at all. Some of these folks, Ambrose is a very new kid on the block. We've only been there for 3 years, but some of these folks have been there for 30 or 40 years, and they've been waiting, and they've been asking, they've been begging to get something done in the industrial park area, and nothing's happened. So, any scrap that you can give us, we'll take it.
Well, I mean, it's not so much that it would be a scrap, sir, but because for me what it was since we already funded the A&E and they came back with the actuals, we made a commitment at that time, and we already spent $500,000 to actually draw up all the plans. It would have been foolish at that point to turn around and say, oh, we're not going to do it anymore.
Sure, true.
Because we still had all the funding mechanisms in place, but at least we had a firm figure.
Sure.
And so if we were to instead reconstitute the bill first to have it authorize an A&E, and then when the A&E comes back with a true costing, then we can authorize the second round of financing.
If I may add to that, and I can't exactly speak on behalf of the HIP Association, this is more of a, I guess on my end, on a personal level. Would it be possible to consider adding that into the same legislation in the sense where first the A&E is appropriated, once that analysis comes in, the same legislation, the same, hopefully by then it's a public law, allows the continuance of the project versus saying, okay, the A&E is going to say it's going to cost $3.5 million, and then a year later we're all back in square one over here seeking another legislation. In other words, can it be a consideration that it's sort of attached together? At the moment, the A&E comes back and says, okay, well, it's going to cost, $3.75 million. Well, now the continuation of the same public law will allow the HIP Association to proceed with the funding. And of course, if it allows for more, there's already language in the legislation that says they have to come back to the legislature to seek that approval.
Right.
Sort of so that we don't have to come back to square one again.
Well, I can see where you're going.
Yeah.
It kind of though takes me back to what would have been my second question. Would have been this being a tax credit transaction would kind of been outside of the government procurement process. And so if we authorized a $4 million tax credit, and even if we put an A&E trigger in the front, or we said first complete the A&E and then you're authorized to expend up to $4 million, there might be a tendency to fund the full $4 million, even though the A&E may have come back with a $2.7 million price
Sure.
tag.
But there could probably be language in there that if it's lower, then that eliminates the excess amount. So if the A&E comes back and says, oh, the total cost would be $2.7 million.
But the A&E will come back at pretty much wherever. If we set a $4 million availability of funds,
Sure.
then the A&E will most likely come back at the highest end of $4 million. But if instead we say A&E and then the association says these main roads, what's the base cost going to be, then we get a figure that would not necessarily be guided towards an amount that was previously stated.
Sure.
You kind of follow what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Right.
As long as, I guess the biggest consideration would be, or the concern would be, reinventing it, coming back to square one. Once you find out what the estimated cost would be, another legislation is going to be introduced. I mean,
Right.
if we could avoid that process and let 285 sort of
Right.
accomplish,
Yeah.
as many goals as it can.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, I think, the biggest concern that I would have.
Yeah, this is kind of the same conversation that we actually had with the doctors when they were discussing the labor and delivery award. We followed through on the commitment, sir. This isn't any kind of attempt to not follow
Sure,
through on the commitment. But for me, it just becomes a prudency issue where first let's at least figure out how much the project costs, and then we'll authorize the full amount after that. Because what they were asking for the labor and delivery was, again, they wanted to come in with, like I think it was $14 million in financing or something. And then when we finally finished the A&E, the amount was very, very different. And so what I'm asking is perhaps we can pass a bill that would authorize a tax credit for an A&E. The interested parties can go out and procure that. And then as soon as that's procured and the costing is identified, come back with the A&E and the costing, and then secondary legislation to authorize that. So that's pretty much what I'm asking at this time. Yeah. I understand you want to testify, sir. It's in line with the conversation?
Right here. I'm
Okay. If you can just
Micheal.
state your name for the record then.
Yes. My name is Mark Mamzarz. I was scheduled a little bit later. I'm a
Right.
vice president at Black Construction Corporation. I've been working in Harmon for 25 years. Everybody's looking at cost. If we were to truly take Harmon Industrial Road and some of the other things and fix them all, yes, you're talking about $20, $30 million. That's not the goal of here right now. Our goal is to get it started. Our goal is and I'll be honest with you, we want to spend the $4 million, and we want to spend it the best way we can as businesses in the area. If we get one road, so be it. If we can get two roads, better. If we can get all three, we'll be jumping for joy. We've got huge problems in Harmon. You go down Harmon Industrial Road, and you look at the flooding right now this afternoon, and it was up to a foot deep. Happens all the time. Standard operating procedure for us. So really what we're trying to do here is to be able to take the first step as an organization and as a group of businessmen. We understand what we need in Harmon. That's why we've done it through HIPAA. And try and figure out how best we can spend this first $4 million, because it's way more than $4 million we need. They came back and said, well, if we ask for too much, we'll get blown out of the water. nobody's going to talk to us. If we ask for what we really need, it will never happen. And so in the bill, we already came back with a compromise. You know, and I'll be honest with you, an intersection with a stoplight is somewhere between $750,000 to $1 million. So we're talking 3 intersections, there's $3 million right there for the stoplights and stuff. $4 million isn't a lot for us to try and get Harmon so the traffic flow is a little bit more reasonable. It's not a big number. As I say, they came back with the whole attitude of trying to say, we're going to drop this number. We're going to take the bare minimum that we think, you know, we can get by. And believe me, the intention of the HEPA will be to spend the entire $4 million as effectively and as efficiently as we can, because we are the business owners and the people in Harmon that are impacted by this, and we're going to be able to make our decisions as to how best to improve our area. And that was why we proposed it under HEPA and the whole approach to this. So $4 million is really a drop in the bucket to what we need in there to try and get the flooding out and everything else. But it's a starting point, and later on, you know, I don't know if you've ever tried to come out of Harmon, but if you try and come out of Harmon at 5 o'clock, let me get a raise of hands. How many people have taken more than 15 minutes to get out of Harmon at 5 o'clock? 50 to get out of Harmon, not to get on Marine Corps Drive. And this is what we're trying to attack. This is what we're trying to achieve. We want to get out of Harmon. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Mamzarz. I have a full appreciation for the problem. I live in Garido. I go through Hamburger Road oftentimes because sometimes it's as bad as it is, it still moves a little bit faster trying to get up towards the Santa Barbara area. And yeah, absolutely, I don't think there's a single person here who will dispute that we need to fix the road. What I'm talking about more so is the mechanics by which we set up a policy process, because this is the first time, to my knowledge, that we're going to be using a tax credit initiative to fund a major road construction project, and it may actually set a precedence for future projects. And so if we don't set a proper precedence, while all the intentions are good here with this body before us today, we might not have good intentions with future bodies in the future. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do now in terms of being able to authorize this is going to set up a precedence that future bodies are going to be able to look to and follow with a similar expectation. And so the only thing that I'm kind of discussing right now is perhaps we can first authorize the tax credits necessary for us to figure out what the project scope of work is going to be and what the cost will be, and then once that's identified, come back again for the second round of financing. And that's all I'm offering.
I mean, I think what we're trying to do is expedite the process.
Correct.
And we're trying to, and that's why we've asked for the $4 million. We're trying to make it move, and as businessmen, we can make it move perhaps a little quicker than the government. If we fail, then in the future we won't do it again. Nobody will do it again. If we succeed, and this does become a viable alternative, then, like you say, maybe in the future other places we can apply this same concept to. You know, I go back to his $4 million being 13 cents out of $100. It's a drop in the bucket, and I think it's well worth the chance for us to be able to get out of Harmon.
Senator, I understand you had some...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I really have an appreciation for the Chairman's concern and his recommended approach. I think that in terms of trying to look at the two different approaches with regards to GMH, that was a borrowing scenario. Our government had to go out and actually borrow funds for the next 30 years to be able to fund that, or 20 years to be able to fund that labor and delivery room. Here, the loan, interest-free, is coming from the business partners of Harmon Industrial Park. And I think that in that particular case, Mr. Chairman, if we can also look at, you're absolutely right, the impact on the general fund or the government of Guam proceeds, it's $1 million a year over 4 years. It's worth an investment from my perspective to look into the eyes of every single person in this room and say your government, your legislature is willing to go down this path, or we can tweak it and structure it so that in fact there's that direct accountability and that responsibility on the part of the government partnering with HIPAA. But really, when the funds are being fronted by our business partners or the businesses in the Harmon Industrial Park area, it's something that I think we really need to push ahead as quickly as possible so that we can get this process going through. And if we need an additional oversight component so that we can work closely in conjunction with the business partners, then certainly it's worth a risk, because $4 million being spent by businesses, I think you're going to spend it as prudently as you possibly can to make sure that the roads, as much of the roadway is repaired. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Aguon. Just because I've read this bill very, very closely, and absent a scope of work and an A&E, the amount doesn't have a specific work product, definitive work product. And so, don't get me wrong, I don't think that there's any unscrupulous intent here, but if we set a bad precedence and we do this without requiring the scope of work and the A&E first, a future legislation could come through this body using the same precedence, and $4 million can go to pay for one intersection versus 3. And because it doesn't go through the procurement process in the government of Guam, and because there isn't any real checks and balances to make sure that the amount is being spent to get the best price for the cost of work, it does open up an opportunity for there to be abuse. And so what I'm asking is, can we fund can we figure out how much the project is going to cost and what that project is going to entail, authorize a tax credit for that first, and then once we know that, then come back and authorize the funding based on that amount. That's something that I'm putting out at the hearing for the body to consider. I know that we could easily say, yeah, let's just do it. It needs to be done. We got to get out of Harmon. But for me, I'm just very concerned about the precedents, and I'm concerned about making sure that the actual cost and the scope of work is going to be aligned with what the best value can possibly be for the people of Guam. But thank you, Mr. Shimizu. That would. Oh, I did have one more question that wasn't addressed in the bill, and that was a liability. If we're going to be authorizing government tax credits for a project on a government asset, and the businesses are going to be doing the work, who's going to be incurring the liability on the project? Is it going to be the business? So, for example, let's say we have somebody operating a steamroller. Someone gets caught underneath it. Was this a government project that the government has to be able to make remedy for? Or is it going to be the person who was operating the steamroller and the company they work for? Or the asphalt and who donated the asphalt that was being flattened out? I mean, how does liability... Because if it was a government-funded project, procurement and everything, then it falls into the Government Claims Act. And it would be the government that's liable. But because this is a very unique circumstance, who at the table is going to assume the liability for any of the issues?
Mr. Chairman, before I turn it over to Mark or Bobby, I thought I read in the bill that there are government agencies involved. Once the legislature is finished and approval is forthcoming, that Public Works is the reviewer, if I'm not mistaken, the reviewer and the approving authority for plans, and GIDA is the
Manage the tax credits.
manager, the management
GIDA would
agency
authorize the
of this
credit.
one. So
Right.
we're still we can't do it ourselves.
Correct.
The bill says you got to go through Public Works. They will be overseeing your plans, your A&E, whatever. And finally, you got to go through GIDA, and they will have oversight over any of our procurement, any of our disbursements, and so on and so forth.
I think to
But
add to that...
as far as engineering and so forth is concerned, I have no idea.
Mr.
But
Chairman?
I think if I could just kind of chime into what Mr. Shimizu said, sorry, Senator. The mechanism that's designed into Bill 285 is very similar in replication to what was designed for the soccer stadium, for the Teton Gymnasium, as well as the Raceway Park. All projects, or I believe they're government projects as well. I'm not sure where, at that particular juncture, what the liability or who took the liability at that point was. But I would assume it would be a very similar structure. Because, I mean, it's a very similar mechanism that was in place, as was with the Teton Gymnasium as well as the soccer stadium. other government projects. So I would assume if something occurred there, I'm not sure who took the
Yeah, I
liability,
just
but it
bring
would
it up
be
because
similar.
perhaps what we'll
Yeah.
do is I'll work with some of my more
Sure.
legally minded colleagues to
Absolutely.
perhaps include a provision in here to just make that very clear.
Sure.
Because I think it's a very great concept, and then we're just going to make sure that all the lines are.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in the chamber testimony, it also clearly indicates that we hope to see this as a future project or future mechanism for other roadway projects.
Right.
As soon as this sort of came out, we've had a number of business associations in the Picanell Street, for example, as
Right.
well as West O'Brien Drive, are saying, hey, listen, will this work for us as well?
Right.
So it's true. I mean, this is going to set precedents, and if we're going to do this, we do this right. However, this is going to definitely, I don't think this is the first or last time we're going to be sitting, at least from the chamber perspective, sitting supporting legislation to repair some industrial zone.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's just about, let's just get the thing right and get it done. I fully support the project. Senator Torres, you had
No, and I would like, because I've been picking through that, and that was one of the reasons I asked who came up with the estimate, because you would expect that the DPW ultimately is responsible for the project, overseeing it and ensuring it since it's a government asset. But I don't believe that it's in the bill just now. Perhaps it was contemplated but not fine-tuned. So I would hope that the committee takes that into consideration and works that out. Ultimately, it is a DPW asset, and they would have to approve everything, procure everything. But thank
And
you.
as a matter of fact, in a brief conversation with the DPW director yesterday, they sort of appreciate the fact that, there is a territorial highway fund. Unfortunately, and as lawmakers, you're aware, those funds can be directed to one project and suddenly it disappears the next. The current director absolutely supports the concept of repairing this, also understands the difficulties in actually identifying THF funds for this project. So any public-private partnership is a welcome endeavor.
Does anybody at the table have a general idea of what the estimate would be for an architectural and engineering scope of work to be done for a project this size?
I think the HIP has a number of businesses in that industry, so
Right.
they're going to have to look into that.
It'd be six figures, but I couldn't tell you much, somewhere I'd say between 100 to 300,000 or 400,000. Part of it depends on the scope and how far we're able to go. I think what we want to do is take this, one step at a time. We're going to grab an intersection and get one of them fixed, and then that works. We've got 4 years to go to the next one, But every time we open up a new intersection, we open up a relief valve, and a tremendous release valve, and that's the big push for us. And so, it's a 4-year program. It's a 4-year payback period. And I imagine the first thing we're going to do at HEPA is sit down and try and decide which one we want to attack first.
Actually, that was going to be my next question. Just hearing what you've said, is there kind of a concept of what you would do first? Because right now, we're only talking about phase one and $4 million for phase one.
To be honest with you, the first thing we're going to do is do a survey and stay away from the places where we have encroachment. That's
and
the
that's
reality.
fair. Yeah, that's right.
And
That's right.
until we have that, it's hard to say anything.
Right.
And so the first thing that the plan was to go and do some survey work
Okay.
and try and get an understanding of what the real egresses are into Harmon Industrial Park and how do we get in and out. And then once we get a survey, we can then take it the next step. But even, the money, the survey for something like that could be $50,000, $60,000 easy. And it's not so much the laying the markers out, it's doing the research of the properties and everything.
That's right.
So, we just want to get started.
I understand. Thank you.
Kind of sorry that Public Works is not here, because I think they can answer a few of these questions. Like, I think they know where the encroachments are, where legitimate right-of-ways are, and so on and so forth. Because we saw a preliminary plan for Hamburger Road, and the plan is eventually that will be a 5-lane highway from Marine Drive, the old Burger King area, all the way to McDonald, 5-lane highway. So we're not going to touch that. That's why we said, let's try for 4 million because that project is an $18 million estimate. We're not going to touch that because, that's federal funding. The only thing is, I'm not sure it'll get done in your lifetime.
I hope I live long enough to see it.
Any other senators have any other questions at this time? No. So that's kind of where I'm angling at as I review the bill. I would like a firmer handle on the costing of what the project might be. I'm very comfortable authorizing an initial credit, even up to several six figures, to get an A&E going. And I don't think we should even have to wait for that necessarily, because that will, that's going to take time in and of itself. I know when we took that approach with the labor and delivery ward, it took almost a year, but that was because it was the government doing the A&E. If you guys get your tax credit authorization for A&E, I would say maybe 3 months tops, to be able to find somebody and get it going. But perhaps we can...
Just as long as we don't have to, it's very expensive for us to be here.
Right.
We have to... If an employee said, can I come down there to support? And we say, how can we say no? You got a job to do. Stick with your job. You got dispatching to do, invoicing to do, deliveries to do, and so forth. Black construction, Lam tours, all those guys. As long as we don't have to come back again for public hearing, please, it's expensive.
No, I totally understand, sir. And by the way, I appreciate everybody coming out. This is a really great turnout for, I think, what will be a really good community project. And for me, my commitment will be once we fund the A&E, the government's in. We just need to figure out exactly, what in means and what it looks like, so that when we authorize it, everybody knows what we're moving forward. I kind of deviated back and forth from Mr. Shimizu, but thank you, sir, for your testimony. Bobby, if you'd like to offer your testimony
Sure.
this time.
Actually, my testimony, I think, is pretty much everything that we've talked about today. But I'll just kind of brief it. I know everyone has a copy of it, but just to kind of clarify, my name is Bobby Shringi. I'm the vice chairman of the board of directors with the Guam Chamber of Commerce. The Guam Chamber of Commerce wholeheartedly, obviously, supports this legislation. Just to kind of do a little recap, Mr. Shimizu here, who is also a very active member of the Guam Chamber, approached us about almost 2 years ago on this consideration of this project and said, why don't we work together hand in hand with the Harmon Industrial Park Association as well as the Guam Chamber and see if we could sort of come up to something. And that something actually is just exactly what this afternoon looks like. And sort of, I guess I go and read a little bit of this. The Guam Chamber of Commerce has over 400 members, including a good number of businesses whose activities reside in the Harmon Industrial Park region. This includes industries in distribution, telecommunications, construction, logistics, retail, food and beverage, financial, mechanical, maintenance, recycling, and storage. These businesses employ several thousands of individuals, I believe there's a handful here, who commute to this region on a daily basis. This does not include the hundreds of residents who drive through this area for commerce activity, whether it's paying bills, whether it's frequenting one of these restaurants, or whether it's going down to see Mr. Shimizu to pick up a keg of beer. The roadway is currently in deplorable conditions. That's pretty obvious, which not only affects vehicles commuting, but also loses the splendor that is critical for any business region. Bill 285 does not gravely affect the expenditures of the government of Guam, as it caps tax credits at up to $1 million per year for up to 4 years. The legislation does not require any additional bond borrowing or making of interest payments and allows businesses to contribute the total cost of the rehabilitation upfront to begin the construction, a true public-private collaboration effort. This is an ideal financing option considering the cash-strapped conditions of our government. Furthermore, Bill 285-33-33 only allows tax credits for unpledged business privilege taxes at up to $250,000 a year and does not tap into tobacco excise taxes earmarked for the Healthy Future funds. Improving this roadway would also open up entrances that would help alleviate the north and southbound traffic flow from Garido to Tamuning and back. This is another important aspect of the bill as it creates a preventive care alternative for the junction of Route 1. I think it's, Coming off already? Yeah. Is it too loud? Okay. Okay. There you go. Perfect. While we would eventually like to see the repairs of the Hamburger Road, we believe that addressing improvements of the Harmon Industrial Park roadway would optimize traffic flow by alleviating traffic congestion we currently experience at specific hours in the day. Improving an industrial zone would help improve the economic activity in that region as well. It could draw new businesses to set up shop there. It would increase traffic within the roadway that would help the many retailers and restaurants currently located in the area. A cleaner zone results in deterring criminal activity and certainly brings pride to the many businesses, the many businesses and business owners who call that region home. The government has been talking about improving this roadway for decades. And while many patchwork projects have been completed over the years, it is time for a more concrete solution. And Bill 285 is certainly a good solution, a great solution. You know, in closing, the Guam Chamber of Commerce supports Bill 285-33 and hopes that the senators of the 33rd Guam Legislature would consider including this legislation in the October 2016 session, as time is of the essence. We further believe that the proposed financing framework in this bill, which has been successful on other projects, as I mentioned earlier, would be ideal in the rehabilitation of other industrial zones as well. And by the way, I do also want to emphasize a certain commendation to Mayor Louise Rivera and her staff, as well as former Mayor Connie Duenas over the years. There have been a number of efforts of great work that have been put together by various mayors, like I said, including Mayor Rivera, who've helped at least with certain patchwork projects. Unfortunately, resources are always going to be scarce, and so these mayor's offices can do best with what they have. And while we want to, and this project right here that we're working on, or at least we're discussing, in no way demeans any of the efforts that these mayors have done, because they've done a great job with what little they've had. We're hoping to give everyone a little bit more for this right here. So thank you very much for the opportunity to submit testimony, and we look for additional dialogue in this legislation if needed. But thank you, and yes, the Guam Chamber of Commerce definitely supports Bill 285.
Thank you, Bobby. Did any of my colleagues have any questions for Mr. Trinity? No? Okay, if not, Mr. Shimizu, Bobby, thank you. Mr. Mamzarz, I know that you kind of jumped in, but I still have you signed up. Did you want to actually have a provide testimony? Okay, I'll have you as well as Mr. McDowell join us. Mr. Carrera, please join us. And Mr. Louis Baza. Louis? Yeah. All four of the residents of the area, business residents. Okay, Mark, we already started with you, so we'll just start with you and work our way down.
All right, Mark Mamzarz, I'm Vice President at Black Construction. I've been working in Harmon for 25 years and driving into Harmon for 25 years. I don't feel the brunt of it because I normally go to work about 5:45 in the morning, and fortunately traffic's not there. But my employees feel it. And every now and then, even our trip down here today was about 25 minutes. It was rainy and ugly today, and it was splashy in Harmon, and it wasn't very nice. We take pride in Harmon. And I don't know if any of you have been to our offices, but they're quite nice back there in the back of Harmon. People get surprised. And we're just looking out for our employees on this. And everything else. There's a lot of traffic that goes in and out of Harmon. And there's a lot of trucks that go in and out of Harmon that we need to make a few of those roads a bit more safer. We've also brought along, and I'll submit it, we went around the office this morning and got, and I know my signature isn't here, so there's probably more we could do. But we had 75 signatures for the people that were in the office working today. 75 people impacted by this. And we vary in Harmon work between anywhere from 75 to 150 people in our facility. We have a fairly large facility in Harmon. And we've been there, I think we moved in Harmon in '62. So we've been there a long time at Black. It's been home for a long time. The one quick point I wanted to bring up, there is a quick solution, but I know it will never fly because it's DPW. But they already have a stoplight, and it'd be very easy to go from Harmon Industrial Loop to that stoplight to alleviate some problems. Now they don't want to give up they got their gates locked, and I'm sure they don't want to give it up. And that stoplight's wonderful, because if you're coming out of that stoplight, you know, all the stoplights are computerized, right? That is the fastest stoplight on Guam to change. I don't know how DPW has that stoplight so well timed. It's amazing how they managed to do that. But that stoplight is wonderful for exiting Harmon. It's just, I mean, it's like, boom, stop Marine Corps Drive, I want to get out. And nowhere else on Marine Corps Drive does that work. But that would be a quick solution, perhaps, if we could, you know, even if we only opened it up for 2 hours a day when the main traffic goes through, it would help us alleviate. We just need alleviation. I feel so sorry for my employees that take 15 minutes to go from our office to Marine Corps Drive every day. You know, it's sad. And that's the end of it. I think we can do it. You know, I'm in construction. I've been in it for a long time. You know, when we've talked about this, it wasn't, you know, we tried to balance it and bring it back cost-wise to see as if the grand experiment would work. You know, because we recognize it is an experiment. And if we can make it work. And believe me, from the HIPAA side, Mr. Shimizu has got some business leaders behind him that are working on this, that are interested in it. It's, you know, he came up and spoke, but right now we have like 39 members and a lot more wanting to join, but we just kind of held it back until we could figure out what we were doing. You know, so it is got a lot of support within the Harmon community to try and I appreciate him. I mean, I had given up years ago, I'll be honest with you. He's relatively new in the neighborhood, and he took initiative almost from day one, from when they built their facility and moved in. He recognized it, and like so many of us in Harmon, hadn't given up. I mean, we literally gave up. So I appreciate Mr. Shimizu's enthusiasm and his leadership, because he's brought something very important back to life that really should be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Carrera?
Yes, hi. I'm Steve Carrera. I'm General Counsel of IT&E. We've been a long-time resident of Harmon Industrial Park, and we share the same concerns that Black mentioned. And we'd like to thank Mr. Shimizu for moving into the neighborhood and making a significant investment in the community and being the catalyst for this, because personally I feel that Harmon Industrial Park is an economic catalyst for Guam. And I think it's important for other people who want to invest there to be able to enter and exit quickly. And I'm not going to go over all the same issues that were raised, but I mean, they're problematic. We're looking to make an additional investments there as well, and these roads would definitely improve the situation. To your point about, you know, how can the government be assured that these funds are going to be spent properly, which is everybody's concern. I think the business community in the park that has invested in it has every interest to make sure that these dollars go as far as possibly can. And as far as setting a precedent, well, if it doesn't work, then it surely will prevent anybody else from asking or getting the opportunity. So if you're going to make a bet on private industry, I would think that the companies in this room would be your best bet in making sure that the $4 million is spent properly. And everybody in this room, I know, will work their hardest to make sure that it does happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carrera. Mr. Baza?
Hi, my name is Louis Baza, and I work for LFG's cashier. And whenever there's issues that we have with employee safety, you know, they come to me, and we've been having a lot of problems, especially in our area. Just like, that's why when Mr. Shimizu came out with this committee, you know, we were very happy about it because he's right behind us. And our trucks, you know, we're airline catering, so, you know, those holes, those potholes, you know, we'll call DPW, try to get fixed. You know, it takes like 6 months to get it fixed. We had water leakage in front of our building. I think thanks to the committee here that helped me call Waterworks to try to get those pipes fixed. Finally, it got fixed just a couple of days ago. I think it's going to break again because of the rain that is hitting us.
So, you know, and another problem that we have is the safety of our employees is the dogs. I have dogs chasing our own employees in the work. I call public health, I call environmental protection agency, I called everybody, and I just went, oh my God, I don't know where to go. Do I need to go to the governor of Guam or to get help? To get help for our own people, for the safety of our employees that are working there. Our trucks, you can't maneuver them going out, it's too tight. Mr. Simizlu and us, we have the same trucks, and they're big, so we have to be very careful. We have to ensure that there's safety in that area. So, we've invested some money recently because there's a lot of rats there too, and we're also public health required to ensure that we don't have any rodents and things like that in our facility. So we invested a lot of money to the point where we actually hired a contractor to clear the side of our area because they found lots of rats there. So see, that's a public easement, but we're still going in and investing money to try to fix the problem because I'm not going to wait for the government. We're not going to wait for the government to get that fixed. So this committee is going to be very helpful to all of us. And I want to thank again Mr. Shimso for stepping up and having all of us interested for the betterment of us there. Now, I just came from the States, and when you say park, I've gone to these parks, right? And when you say Harmon Industrial Park, Mr. Shimso said it made a good point. And when you tell people Harmon Industrial Park, they're going to say, what kind of park is that? So
No, I think what they mean is when you go to Harmon Industrial, you better park.
Yeah, that's very good. But I want to thank you for listening to us, and we hope, like Mr. Shimon said, we don't have to come back for another public hearing. Thank you very much.
I agree. Mr. McDonald.
It's a real honor to be here with all these smart people. Hate to bring it down. I'm the vice chair of the Harmon Industrial Park Association, and the reason I'm the vice chair is because Frank told me I am. And I'm here at testimony in favor of Bill 285-33. My name is Monty McDowell. I'm the CEO of Advanced Management, a facility support services, a real estate company in operation for 26 years and headquartered in Harmon on Adrian C. Sanchez Street, also known as Hamburger Highway. We conduct business in the Harmon 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We also conduct business throughout Micronesia, California, and the state of Georgia. I'm here today to support my associates who live and work in the area referred to as Harmon Industrial Park. In my youth, it was somewhat a drag race arena where we blew the carbon out of our engines at high rates of speed. The area was basically a large slab of asphalt, ran for miles, and had little or no tenants or inhabitants. Fast forward to 2016, and you find thousands of residents and even greater number of employees working out of businesses that comprise approximately 70% of Guam's industrial base. Guam's economic existence and a large amount of our island residents' quality of life originates from the daily operation of those businesses and associated employees that practice their trade. My company interacts with the businesses within Harmon Industrial Park on a daily basis. Twice in the past 6 months, the deplorable conditions of the road have had adverse effects on my personal vehicle. Twice my tires were damaged beyond repair, and once I found it more cost-effective to replace all 4 of my vehicle tires rather than piecemeal the required corrective actions. This problem and other vehicular structural problems have occurred to many other business owners, employees, and visitors. Industrial vehicles and non-industrial vehicles of every shape and size traverse the main and side roads of Harmon Industrial Park daily. Damage to these vehicles occur all too frequently. The cost to repair them is astronomical. The problems are particularly acute during moderate to heavy rain, as many large and deep potholes fill up and are thrust obscured, creating deep traps into which our vehicles crash down and are damaged. Our Harmon Industrial Park Association discussed the need to improve Harmon Industrial Park roadways with GovGuam Public Works. I admit sadness that Harmon Industrial Park roadways are not presently on any GovGuam road improvement radar screen. Unfortunately for my business, Hamburger Highway has millions of dollars and a plan in place for its much-needed revitalization. Several years ago, a Guam senator based his election platform on Harmon redevelopment. Even though the senator strived to improve Harmon, it never occurred. I suspect his colleagues in those legislatures did not feel the necessity that this senator felt. I would not be surprised if the members of our Harmon Industrial Park Association occasionally open their office windows and yell, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." Probably occurs each time one of their precious and very expensive vehicles is once again damaged by the deplorable road conditions. Bill 285-33 is what we, the members of the Harmon Industrial Park Association, believe to be a methodology that allows the needed road revitalization to occur, taking into account the current financial constraints of our government. I urge the current Guam legislature to move this legislation to session floor and expeditiously pass it prior to the November 2016 election date. Thank you for this opportunity to present my testimony in favor of Bill 285-33.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or statements for this panel? If none, thank you very much for joining us. This will conclude those who have signed up to actually provide any oral testimony. Is there anyone in the audience who may have wanted to testify that did not sign up to testify? I don't want to leave anybody out. If not, I'll go ahead and invite the sponsor of Bill 285 to provide his closing statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for having this particular public hearing. And to all of the business representatives that are part of the Harmon Industrial Park Association, thank you for coming together and trying to come up with a novel idea, create a novel idea in terms of the government partnering with the business community and seeing if, in fact, we can improve and rehabilitate this particular roadway. So to everyone here, thank you for your presence this afternoon, and thank you for supporting the legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Aguon. This will go ahead and conclude the public hearing requirement for Bill 285-33, and we will go ahead and retire this agenda item and move on to our next bill on the agenda, which is Bill 330-33, also introduced by Senator Aguon, and I will yield the floor at this time to the Senator for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, also for having this particular public hearing. It's a very simplistic amendment. If you and our colleagues are able to review the addition of the wine component to acquiring a liquor business license is on page 2. It would add wine and at a cost of $400 per year, because it was identified by a number of wine enthusiasts that, in fact, there was not a specific business license that would cater to this particular requirement. And some of these business enthusiasts would like to proceed aggressively in establishing their own wine enterprise or business operation. So, Mr. Chairman, I ask your consideration and the committee's consideration in supporting this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Aguon. And just to clarify, this is for off-premises retailer sales. And also, it's necessary for the clarification because in another section of public law, they do distinguish between the exemptions and the thresholds for establishments that sell alcohol. And if you just sell beer or you just sell wine, you fall under a different threshold than if you were to be selling general alcohol. And so because this Class 5 retail off-premises does not create a specific line item for the wine subcategory, they are getting lumped into the general, and then the exemption thresholds are preventing them from being able to sell. So this would be more of a housekeeping measure. I think it looks like a public law oversight. So thank you, Senator Aguon, for the introduction of the bill. We don't have anyone who signed up to testify for Bill 330. We will go ahead and regard Bill 330 as having been heard this evening and move on to our next. I'm sorry, John, are you signing up to testify on Bill 330? Or are you... Okay. So we'll go ahead and conclude the hearing requirements for Bill 330 and move on to the next agenda item, Bill 337-33, introduced by myself. Bill 337 is an act to amend subsection 1 of subsection 22425, Article 4, Chapter 22, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated. Basically, what Bill 337 will do is, right now, when we fund education, it's funded through two funding sources. One is the general fund, and the other is a territorial educational facilities fund. What's been problematic over the years and causing, and was one of the main reasons why DOE was constantly facing budget shortfalls was that the projections in the Territorial Education Facilities Fund were not actually meeting up with the actual revenue that was brought into that fund. So the way this bill is written is it would restructure the language so that the funding source of the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund, which is property taxes, would still be 100% credited to DOE, but in the event that for whatever reason the projections in the TEFF were above what we actually collected, in other words, if the TEFF was short, this bill would require the Department of Administration to make the Department of Education whole by funding them fully the amount that was projected in the TEFF from the general fund. So we're hoping that Bill 337 will remove any budget shortfalls from DOE occurring as a result of the shortfalls from the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund. And so that's why we've introduced Bill 337-33. We also have no one who signed up to testify on behalf of that bill. So we will go ahead and conclude the hearing on Bill 337 and regard it as being heard today. And this would take us to Bill 339-33, introduced by Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr. And at the time, I'll yield the floor to the Senator for his opening statement. Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Bill 339 is an act relative to the electronic filing of business privilege taxes. What this does, Mr. Chairman, committee members, is that it makes it a requirement that BPT are filed electronically. I know that there's perhaps an option now that you can file it online. Right, John? Is there an option now? So there is an option, but this one now would make it mandatory that it's filed electronically. And it also requires that the department establish kiosks or terminals at the department so that people that may not have the capabilities or the abilities to file online can still come to the department and be able to file this through a terminal that scans their form. I understand that one of the components that we still have to determine and deal with, and perhaps we can get to that when the director testifies, is the payments that would have to be would come in with these people that file electronically, and we got to be able to deal with that. The purpose really of this measure is to be able to provide our government and our people the appropriate data in real time. There was a report, Inspector General report, I believe, several years ago, that had discussed the problems that we're seeing in tax collections and reporting requirements. And even one specific report that indicated that our island, really doesn't capture over $20 million annually because of the fact that most of the processing is done manually. And so the hopes of this piece of legislation is to improve that. To be honest, it also improves the information we receive here in the legislature, who is especially during the budget season, when we have to ensure that the appropriate numbers are available to us. And so I'm hoping to be able to move this forward with the recommendation of the department to strengthen this measure, and also working perhaps with the Office of Technology to see how we can get this terminal that this bill talks about in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rodriguez. I do have the Director of Revenue Taxation, Mr. John Camacho, signed up to testify. John.
Thank you for this opportunity to testify on Bill 339-33. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, senators, members of the Finance and Taxation, General Government Operation and Youth Committee. I'm here in support of Bill number 339-33. And before I continue, I guess my name is John Camacho. I'm the Director of the Department of Revenue Taxation. I guess this similar bill was introduced back, several years back by, I believe, the Speaker herself, and I guess it didn't go through, but we're looking at it now again and improving the system. The online filing was available for at least over 10 years, I believe. The only problem is that it wasn't a mandatory that businesses filed online. So basically, some of the things that we looked at: improve accuracy by eliminating the manual keying of tax data and by implementing a series of computer checks and validation of systems allow more accurate processing of tax data. And again, the other thing is the reduce of costs. In other words, these 7 people that are manually processing, these could be better used at other sections of the department or even trained to tackle problems with the online service. And lastly, I guess, which the sponsor of the bill mentioned, is the option to pay online. And that's something that we're working with DOA to improve and make it more, friendly and less cost for the taxpayers. That we're doing also with DOA. I guess going into the bill, we wanted to recommend some changes, basically because the bill only really introduced, online filing mandatory for BPT. So I'm adding, rather than just saying B, I'm adding A, C, F, and G, which would cover also basically all the other taxes that are within the Guam Code annotated that are filed with DRT, which means that you include mandatory for alcohol tax, tobacco tax, use tax, and liquid and surcharge taxes that are all filed, and they're all available online. So I'm just making it more clear that, if you're only filing for liquid fuel or tobacco or alcohol, that you're still required to file online. It's something that we recommend. And moving forward also, we just amended some of those sections that would require them on the second page, which is the use tax and the hotel, meaning the sections that would require them to file online because they're different chapters. I guess chapter for the use tax is chapter 28, and for occupancy it's chapter 30. And lastly, basically, or second to the last is, I guess recently we passed a law to tax the gaming facilities, and we have a form which is from 30 to 60, which we're taxing all the machines and the bingos and all those. I think bingo and machine, and also the cat fight, and some of those proceeds are going to the Guam Memorial. So we want to also make that online filing. But we don't have the software for that, but that's the only one that's not in our online. But I think we can do it in a matter of due time, basically in a few months. And lastly, I know, Senator, part of the bill would basically make it available for kiosks to electronically scan these tax return, but at this time we recommend that we exclude this process. It'll be very costly for us actually to get into those things, to actually read those numbers and try to put it into our system. But the kiosks will be available for online filing for now, in other words. So I think in the past we tried that to try to read it and then put it into our system, but it was very costly, and there's a lot of errors that we encountered. So I think for now, we recommend that we just take that part out for now, and in the future, if there's some money to get into those things, but we can do that. But right now, everything is available online. And statistic-wise, for the last 3 years or 4 years, e-filers represents at least 44 to 46% are filed online already, and 54 to 56 are manually filed. So it's just those 54 to 56% that are doing it, I guess, manually. And I think part of the thing is that a lot of these is because of the online payment, that they're not into. In other words, they don't want to pay the fee. It's too costly to file electronically and pay that fee. But for people that do utilize it, they still do it, but actually they file it online, but they come in and pay it to Treasurer of Guam. So that's the thing that's happening right now. So I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, John. Does the author of the bill have any questions for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Camacho, you said just going back to your last item of your testimony on the electronic scanning, was that something you had before, you said?
Yes, and I think it was introduced back during my predecessor
Mr. Logan, if you want to speak.
So you have a terminal, actual terminal that does that?
Actually, it's a very, very complex machinery that we have. But when we take a document and it's not in line with what's on the form, it's outside the box, it doesn't read the box, so it miscues the information into the system. So what we tried to do was to get people to do it on a computer so that it's within the box and it can read the numbers and it's very legible to the scanner. The scanner's OCR, ocular something reading, and it's in our department. It's it's an investment that we looked at from Hawaii that read the withholding taxes. What it does is it reads everything through there and it puts it in a system where we don't have to manually key it in. But what happened was the government didn't want to fund the operation of that. We had to get printer ink, and it wasn't in our budget. So we were already scanning some, especially the old business license that were in the back that we need to, before they start to corrode and disappear, we needed to capture those. And we started that. We had a process. It just took too long. So it kind of died down, but we still have the machine in our office.
Okay, I guess, the bill does recognize that even the smallest business owners have some IT capability. I mean, you go to any mom and pop store now, all their POS, they have POS systems that you just scan the items and it's all done through that method. But there's still going to be some, that probably have real estate rentals, renting their extension or renting their apartments that perhaps are not, don't want to do it on computer or don't, have the time or whatever reason they don't, so they want to do it manually. So that's just giving them an opportunity to still be able to do it the way that they've done it, but come in and make sure that it's they can scan it through like what you said you may have. So I guess that's something that we can still discuss further and see exactly what is the financial cost that you say is needed to perhaps upgrade that system you have already, but to probably also weigh out whether it would be very beneficial if we do have that option available. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Just a few questions from me. So this will require online filing. Has our online filing systems ever gone down in the past? And if so, for how long would they be offline?
I guess yes. There's at times I guess even the other programs that we have in the department, if the system is down, then it's a matter of time. But I guess on those type of situation, we have our IT people to try to resolve those problems as fast as possible, and basically. But in any event, if there's anything that comes down, like for example the due date, and we know that our system is down, we'll be able to actually have that authority to waive any penalties or interest for reasonable costs. So that's some of the things that I seen. If, for example, we closed the department and it's a due date, we've done that, and we inform taxpayers that if you come in the next business day to file, we'll waive those penalties and interest.
When the system goes down, the data is still there. It's just a matter of getting the system back up, and everything that you keyed in as a taxpayer will still be there when the system comes up. It's not something that would be lost. All our records are kept at RevenTax, our database, and it's backed up. So if it does go down and that system crashes, we have a backup to reload the data. One thing good about the system, if you key in your information and you paid it online and you paid the cost, if you want to look at
your records. It's there. You can just go into the system, pull out your name and your social security, and it'll show your filings and your payments.
I understand. My only thing is that technically the way the language is structured is we're going to require that they file electronically, and so my concern is if the system's down and they have to by law file electronically and they can't, I mean, of course, logic will be they come in and they do a paper filing perhaps, but the law still actually required an electronic filing. So if they did the paper filing, would they still need to go in and do it electronically in order to comply with the law? I mean, those are just different nuances that I think need to be ironed out. I remember we were discussing earlier, instead of implementing a requirement to file electronically, we were discussing perhaps having a paper fee, like for filing a paper filing, a special charge for that, as opposed to mandating just an electronic filing. But my only concern is that the way this is written is that it just requires electronic. And if the system's down, it's not the fault of the taxpayer.
I know, but one of the reasons that we really wanted to go with the mandatory is the keying of the returns. This is something that is very basic. I mean, if you go in there to Aguon Tax and .com, you go into our website, it tells you the instructions. You work with our PIN administrator, you get a number, and then all you have to do is enter it. And it even keeps, I've been using it for years, and all those years that I use it, I have a file for it, and it's there. And if there's anything that's questioned, I mean, DRT has the visibility to look into it and see that, yes, you did file these returns. But the key point that we really is eliminating the manual processing of these returns. If we look at it, 17,000, I guess when we're looking at based on comparison of account holders, there's a lot that's still doing it manually, and that's a lot something that we process on a monthly basis. So it's something that we want, but I think there was a time where there was an open about have some kind of exemptions that may be available. That's what you're saying, is that in the case that the system is down or what, maybe they'll be manually filed.
So every taxpayer is already able to file electronically right now? Or do you need to apply for electronic access?
Yes, it's available. Like I said, there's about, based on account holders, there's about, for 15, it's about 46% are doing it already online. I would say the majority of these people that are doing are the ones that are not paying, people that are not making over 40 grand annually, and they're doing it every month because they're not, they're just filing it for informational returns. But the people that are filing it, it's a great use for them. They don't have to keep, a file, what month they filed, and how much and what's the amount. At the end of the year, you can print your returns, transfer it over to your income tax return, and file it. It keeps track of all these things. But I think the key point that we really want is the paperless. I mean, it's something that we don't have to receive from Treasurer Guam, thousands of return every month and manually process it.
How does it work, if you're an accountant and you file somebody's GRTs for them? I can imagine, for example, somebody who has a business, they don't speak English, they rely on an accountant to handle their books. The accountant kind of fills out the tax paperwork and they kind of sign it and manually file it. If we require them to do electronic filing, would the accountant be able to go in, and are they legally authorized to be able to file on behalf of the taxpayer? How does that work?
Actually, at the end of the return, if you file it manually, it gives you, if you're an agent of the taxpayer, right, or you have a power of attorney to the taxpayer. Normally, taxpayers will deal with that. Right. I mean, if I'm a taxpayer and Art here on my side, he takes care of my books and records. So, if our agreement is that he files my monthly return, maintains everything, then that's legal, because I'm authorizing as my accountant to file my return every month.
Right, but is the current system built to be able to indicate that, where an accountant can go in and file for me and indicate on the system that this filing is being submitted by, BD's bookkeeping on behalf of Mike and Nicolas. Is that how the system is currently built? Or does it just automatically assume that it was the taxpayer themselves who did the filing?
First thing is that when you get a business license at our department, you're assigned an account number or an account number. So let's say, for example, myself, I get a license. So, okay, Mr. Camacho, here's your license. And by the way, this is your GRT account number. So at the very top of the BPT returns that takes care of all the taxes, I put in my name, my address, and my GRT account number, and the month that I'm filing. And at the end, I fill out all the space. And at the end, there's on the bottom before I file it, there's a statement there that you're under penalties of perjury. You're filing that and you're doing those things. So that's how it really works.
I understand. What I'm asking is, on the electronic side, can a third party file on my behalf, and is the system built to properly account for that third party doing the filing as opposed to it just registering as if I did it myself? Because I'm trying to recall, I do my GRTs online too, I don't recall a third party button where, or something like that. So is the system built to be able to take in third-party filings on behalf of a taxpayer? Because from what I recall, it's just strictly aligned to the GRT number.
Yes, I'll look into that, but I think there's stipulations that when you do e-filing, I think there's stipulations that because even at that point in time, there's no signature required, but it's already by law that if you do it, we have to accept it.
Right, but the assumption is that since I'm signing in with my GRT number, then I'm the one who's liable for that filing. But if someone's filing on my behalf, like an accountant or a bookkeeper, who typically probably would have done it on the paper side, I don't think the system's built to be able to account for third-party filings.
This is between you and your accountant now. So if you authorize your accountant to be filing on your behalf, then you're still really the responsible person for that return, because your accountant is just an agent of you. So I think what you're more looking into is maybe fraudulent returns. If somebody were just to, there's ways probably that we can look at that. If somebody were to fraudulently or intentionally file on your behalf or something like that. I mean, I would make sure that my accountant has the authority to file under my name, but you're looking more into like fraudulent returns or returns that are filed that are not accurate or something like that.
I want to make sure that.
But I definitely can look into that and get back to you. But I guess just like in any e-filing returns, like the 1040 that we have now, there's stipulation in there when you actually, I'll look into it and get back to you.
Okay. Well, I have no problems, making everything as convenient as possible. And electronic is, of course, very, very easy and easy to account for. You take away the inputting problems. It's just the accountability. Just making sure that if we're going to be allowing for that process to, if we're going to require it and basically do away with the entire paper filing, what are the potential ramifications, particularly in the event of there's the third-party filing considerations. So we'll work with the agency and the author of the bill to make sure we iron that out. I'm going to go on. I'll go back online and double check again. Is there a part there where I'm supposed to, just to make sure? But it becomes clockwork after a while. That's how convenient it really is. So
I don't know. I never filed online.
If you can,
I don't know. I've never filed online, but I think there's a PIN number that's given to taxpayers for you to enter into your tax records. So
right.
I don't know if when you filed yours, did you have to go into put in your PIN number, right?
But my question is, like, if someone were to be filing for me, like, what if I never did my taxes? What if someone was always the one doing my taxes for me? Do they just go in with my PIN and really, is there a paper trail to indicate who's the liable party for a misfiling? That's something that I just want to make sure we iron out very clearly.
That's a good point, because even on the paper form, somebody can just file for you too and put a signature down there. So
right.
It can also happen on a hard copy of a return.
Right. Yeah, but it'll be a lot easier to be able to backtrack when that happens. So we'll work together with the agency to try and get the intent of Bill 339 through. Any of my other colleagues have any questions for the panel? Senator Torres?
Afterday, Mr. Camacho, Mr. Logan. If I heard you correctly, you mentioned that you may need an additional software to implement all of your recommendations from A to A to G?
The only one that I believe we don't have in there is the limited gaming tax that is fairly new. And I just remember something, I apologize. I think also it's in there, but I don't think we have the software yet for exempt organizations that to actually file. But the exempt organizations only are annual filers, and they're not monthly filers. So I think those are the two that I when I was looking at the statute on our online program, are the only ones that are not online right now. But all the other taxes are online, from BPT to use tax, hotel, the alcohol, tobacco, down the line, they're all in there.
Lo siguro ana tunisita mas salapi?
I know it's something that I know we need money to do that and include that if it becomes law. In other words, if this were to pass, to go ahead also and include the limited gaming tax and all the exempt orgs, and I think I got to go back and make sure. But this is just a proposal that I'm making right now. But yes, Senator, you're right. If we were to get into those, we would need some kind of a funding source.
And what I was the impression that I had just listening to you, and I commend you for the recommendation, because I think that that's a good step towards modernizing our system and making it a lot more efficient and having the reporting be real time and the access to information. But we're also looking at increasing now the usage from about 46% to double that or more, and whether the capacity then becomes stretched and you need to build more capacity to handle that electronic part is what I'm a little concerned about. So perhaps the author would have to take all those recommendations into account.
Yeah, we are aware of that, and we've been talking to our IT people, Frank Lohan, to give us that resources. I know that doubling the usage of the online filing from, if it's at 46, I believe, and we're going to make it close to 100 later on a yearly basis. I know we need more staff and support too, and we have talked about that with our IT people. And even thinking for a fact that those people that are processing these manual GRT returns will be trained to tackle those problems.
Thank you, Senator Torres. If no other questions for the panel, I'll go ahead and invite the author of the bill to close if he would like, or we can, sure.
Thank you. Just one last question. So right now, if you file online, but you need to make a payment, right? So let's say I file today. Is there a time frame where I need to make that payment, or do I have to have made that payment already before I filed online? Have you experienced something like that now?
Basically, if I understood the TPS system, and I may have to go back and make sure, but I think there's still some ample time that if you really want to go back and pay it, I think it would allow you. I just got to go back and check that. But from my understanding of the TPS, yes, I think it can. Once you file it, you can go back and go into the website, and I think there's a section there that you want to make payment.
No, if you want to manually go in.
Oh, manually. Oh, yes, you can do that. But even also at the same time, if you can't do the online payment today, and let's say you file your return real early and it's not the 20th of the month, and you want to pay it online, I think it still allows you to go back online and make that payment also online. That's what I was trying to say. But
how about if you file on the 20th, right?
Yes.
You file on the 20th and it's a Friday, and you go in on Monday to make the payment. How does that work out?
That's something that then you're not really covered, because you have to file it on the. If you want to escape from paying the penalty and interest, you need to pay it on the due date.
So
and that's what people are doing, is that if they file it on that last day, they run to the Treasurer of Guam and make the payment. That's what's happening.
So now you're able to capture those people, though, that may do that?
Yes, it's captured. It's captured data-wise, it's captured, and payment-wise, it's captured.
Great. I guess that's the beauty of having it electronic, right?
Yeah, and yes, and the other thing that I want to mention, our plans is to expand the online filing by categories. Right now, You're looking at all the different activities from retail to service to rental. What we're doing basically is working to sort of like every sector of the business. We want to break it down. If it's basically we're dealing with service, you got a service license. We're looking at all the different types of services that are available out there, whether you're in a mechanic or in the service of let's say food or whatever it is, that we'll try and work with the business license. So when you're a mechanic, basically you get a license for a mechanic and you give you a code service, let's say number 1. And then when you report that gross receipt under mechanic 1, you'll tally that. So in the future, if anybody wants to say, I want to know how much gross receipts are in the mechanic business in Guam, we'll be able to capture it. So
Yeah, I remember we did pass something that required NIC codes and
Yes,
separating everything out into specific industry categories for the ability for us to actually
yes,
research them.
and that's why we just need the funding for those things. So, but that's something that we even work with.
How much, John?
We're working with EAB also to try and get those things in.
Okay. There's got to be some kind of grants, too, out there for that and stuff like that. But anyway, I know Senator Espaldon had a question.
Actually, the question is very basic, and considering if we're going to go down where we're mandating everything is electronically filed, the very first question I guess that came to my mind is, how strong is your IT department over there at Rev and Tax? In other words, because you're the central point of collection, and we're doing everything and all this filing electronically, and it's mandating it. We're no longer going to take paper. Something happens, and you don't have the IT staff to really try to get it back as soon as possible, then that central collection point really hampers government operations. So the question is, how strong is your IT?
That's basically what Senator Torres was talking about earlier. We're addressing this issue right now. I know it's at 46%. If we're going to double that, we need the resources. So we're working with Frank Lohan right now and our IT people from the government. We're also working with our vendors to ensure that there's smooth transitions on e-filing. So that's something that we know we're going to have to face, and that we're looking into those things right now. Right now, for 2015, it's 46%. It's working. There's not too many complaints at 46%.
And John, excuse me if I just interrupt. I understand, and I think we all understand the need for this, and really this is the direction we got to go to.
Yeah.
But the way this bill reads is this becomes effective immediately upon enactment. In other words, or December at the very latest. So we can't go passing this now without making sure that without making sure that you have the resources to be able to do it at 100%, right? I mean, again, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with the need to do something like this. It's just a matter of, are we really, really ready when it comes down to the technological side and the technological support to be able to do this. And then the other concern I have, of course, there's a lot of people still, and it might be the small businesses really, right, who may not be computer literate or maybe just have some aversion to doing electronic filing. And what do we do about those people? I mean, they just might figure out, well, I just won't file, period. And maybe not even file for a license or anything just because of their aversion to. And so I wonder whether we might be almost kind of shortchanging ourselves in the end, because if we're not ready, first of all, technologically, and with the proper support staff to be able to handle this in case of emergency, and I think the chairman alluded to this, right? In case of an emergency, something goes down, something goes wrong, how many backup systems we have to make sure that it can come back as soon as possible. But more than that, do we have the personnel, at least in-house, to say, we got a major problem, we got to fix this within the next, as soon as possible type of issue. And so the question was, how strong are we basically in-house over at Rev and Tax?
Basically, right now, I know there's unanticipated things that can happen in the future, but right now that 46% that we're taking in, and like I said, if you're looking at December December as making it as a requirement that these things, I'm not too sure. I know the senator put that date in there. We can certainly move it, the date if everybody's not comfortable with December. But the only thing is that the bill didn't look at any other options as it is. It was presented as is. And to answer your question, I believe our vendor and our IT people for the Department of Administration will be capable of handling these things when we move forward with the filing of or mandatory filing of our BPT.
The system is there already. It's just mandating somehow to get people to do it online. And with the issue of people that don't know how to do it, we can teach them. If they're not capable of doing it, they can come in and have a provision for them to be excluded from the online filing. But I don't think there's that many out there that don't use computers. Computers are everywhere.
Yeah, and they're on their phones and everything else.
Right.
I understand, but there's, I'm sure some who just have an aversion of filing online. I've been one for a long time, only because some of my records have been lost, and I've had to come in and I didn't have anything to back up that I already paid, and I felt, well, shoot, I just double paid, but I had to do it. And so trust is the issue in the system, and that's why the question was directed at how strong is your IT section.
Our IT is centralized now. So Frank Lohan is the BIT administrator, and he has been very, very helpful with us. We have our weekly meetings with our administrators, and he's in there, or his deputy is in there, and we air out what we need in our department. So what they did was they took all our systems people and they centralized it down at DOA. I think that was the purpose of that bill that was passed. So everything is done at DOA, but when it comes to support, they're very, very capable of supporting. I mean, they've been doing it for so many years.
But they're not
still
dedicated
there.
just to you, though, right? I mean,
No,
they're
they're
government-wide, right? The
right.
Office of Technology.
Right.
I know, Senator, I know there's going to be a great increase, like you said, come December, but I think I want to basically even really defer these questions to Frank, because, he's really the person that will be able to answer when it comes to technology, and whether I have, very minimal knowledge on IT. So, even when I was talking to Frank, we're making other moves to basically what we want to do also is to look into the income tax, to do it electronically. We have 1040 Easy. When I spoke to him, he said our system is capable of taking those things in, and that's wonderful, because we're looking at all the other possibilities for 1040 and 1040As to be filed electronically. So that's in the works right now. So I think I would defer that question, when it comes to reliability and how to respond to those questions, because Frank, I think, would be the right person to answer that.
Okay, and I appreciate that, John. I guess the last question would be that right now it's very time certain that upon enactment or whatever, December of this year, is there any aversion maybe to phase it in a little softer? I mean, in other words, going from a discretionary to mandated, you got to do it. Start January 1st or January 20th or January 1st, I would imagine, right? Everybody's on, and I'm not sure that the word will get out, and I'm not even sure that people will abide by it. They'll still come in with their paper, and then what happens, right? So I'm just wondering, are you averse to perhaps phasing it in a certain way? There might be a different way. In other words, there might be several different ways to skin this cat, and as opposed to just what's before us right now. With the eventual goal of getting to that 100% electronic filing.
I know this bill was introduced some time ago, and maybe that's December. it's a little bit close from now, but I don't recall. I don't know, maybe sponsor of the bill may answer
Yes,
why it was
thank
December.
you. I was going to jump in. But yeah, that date is not something that is for us to keep. Yeah, you're right. It was introduced earlier this year, but of course we're not going to make it effective until you're ready to implement it. I mean, that's just common sense for us to be able to make the effective date when you're ready to do that, right? So, but I think we can't forget that what we're doing here and any investments, which I'm sure we're going to have to put some investments into this to make it work properly, especially you talking about your recommendation to add other taxes, right, to have it part of this electronic filing. But in 2008, it was the Inspector General report that indicated over $23 million of tax collections that Guam really does not capture because of the manual process, right? The manual processing, and so I don't know if that was just for business privilege. I'm sure that's probably across the board, but that's the main intent here, is to be able to get you more efficient, use your resources for tax collections and other tax enforcement activities. So that's really the bottom line and intent here. But we'll work with the committee and we'll work with you to ensure that what we do is going to be something you're able to accommodate.
Yeah, and just to that 20, I think most of that are for real property. I guess it was, I think, 30 million of that was for not doing the real property revaluation. So the others is for the BPT.
Thanks, John. Thanks. I agree with the author of the bill. I think that we do need to eventually get us to an electronic standard. I agree with my colleagues' concerns that just making sure that we're ready to turn that switch on is of course very important. Perhaps what we may also want to include in the mandate is an education period. Require the agency to somehow make themselves available and to publish that they're available for the public to be able to, come in and be taught in case anybody needs to learn how to do it electronically. And then from there, I think that since we only have 46% you said filing electronically, if we turn it on 100%, that's basically doubling the amount of users. So I think that would be a real good first step before we actually take your recommendation and turn it on for everything. And because once we turn that on 100%, we'll be able to find out all the bumps in the road also, and then smooth that over before we expand it to some of the other taxes. So we'll work with the author of the legislation and the rest of the committee to come up with a timeline and an awareness campaign, and we'll move this forward. We definitely do need to have an electronic standard, at some point. So thank you very much for your testimony. We'll go ahead and conclude the hearing on Bill 339 at this time, and we'll move on to Bill 370, and I'll yield the floor to Senator Espaldon for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Guam, this act, this is an act to add new definitions to the Guam Secure and Fair Enforcement for Mortgage Licensing Act of 2010. The Guam Secure and Fair Enforcement of Mortgages and Licensing Act of 2010, also known as SAFE Act, S-A-F-E Act, became law on May 25th, 2010. Subsequent to that enactment, rules and regulations were drafted, publicly heard, and adopted. On May 3rd in 2012, when Oversight Chairman, the late Speaker Ben Pangilinan, advised DRT that the rules and the regulations needed to be amended to reflect what was contained in the statute and that certain proposed definitions were to be deleted. This action was taken by the Department of Revenue and Tax, and the rules and regulations were eventually adopted on December 6th of 2012. However, due to an internal oversight at the department, the definitions that were deleted from the rules and regulations had been uploaded to the Nationwide Mortgage Licensing System, the NMLS website, and applications for licenses following these definitions were processed in error. Each licensee has been in full compliance with the licensing requirements, and in this bill we find that it should not be faulted for this oversight. The Department of Revenue and Tax has requested that the deleted definitions be added to the list of approved definitions contained in the statute, and thus this bill, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We do have Mr. Art Hilagan, who has signed up to provide written testimony. Art, are you doing oral testimony as well?
Yes.
Okay.
But what that written testimony I wrote and I gave to you, I don't know if, I think the Senator read it. Everything that he said is what I'm saying. The SAFE Act is a federal mandate. When the mortgage loans in the states balloon and they had that problem with lenders giving out mortgages, and the lendee had this bubble payment that they had to make within 5 months, otherwise they lose their property. So this law was enacted back in, I believe, 2008, after the big meltdown in the states, and Guam was required through the NMLS to implement that law. It was implemented in 2012. We had the hearings with the late Senator Ben Pangilinan. It was passed, but that law omitted certain organizations that need to be, that our law needs to reflect that it was, that we in Guam authorize certain lender servicers to be licensed in Guam. So what it does is they want to see that law so that we can be in compliance with the NMLS.
Thanks, Art. Any of my colleagues have any questions for? I'm a little concerned. Basically, what you're telling me is that you guys went out and gave out licenses to service providers that weren't really authorized to be licensed under law.
Right. And that was captured by the NMLS, the
Right.
system that said, hey, these are, we didn't see this in your law, and you're issuing the license. So we're now before you to ask to amend that law to include these.
So basically,
types.
now what we're looking at doing is making certain business entities legal on Guam that really weren't legal, but they were given licenses anyway.
Actually, before this law was implemented, even before the federal government said SAFE Act should be implemented, they were already here. We just need to make sure that they're properly licensed and the law allows it.
So we've had mortgage servicing companies that were not banking institutions or financial institutions regulated by our Insurance and Banking Commission that were already in the mortgage
Yes.
servicing business.
Right. The purpose of this law is if you're not a bank,
Right.
you got to be licensed, tested, and licensed. So what this law did was set up regulations for people other than banks that have mortgages of more than 5 to be licensed and regulated.
So what's the difference between these definitions and the ones that we already passed? Like, for example, I know that the ones that we already passed included like our local banks.
Right.
Right. And then what about for like the non-banking financial
Right.
institutions like personal finance, for example? They are already included
Right.
and covered in the
That
law.
is what was passed.
That was
for
passed,
them,
right.
but not for the people that would service them. Let's say somebody goes through Pacific Financial or Personal Finance, got a loan, and somebody wants to service that loan. We got to license those people through the SAFE Act.
Right. So the lenders are already licensed.
Right.
Right. It's the servicers that.
The originators, which are the originators are like Pacific Financial, if they
Right.
have
The
mortgages.
originators are licensed.
Right.
Right.
It's just the people under them that want to service the.
So when they take in the mortgage and then when they securitize it and sell it out,
Right.
it's the buyer that's not licensed.
Right. So we want to make sure that we've been licensing them even before the law. We just want to make sure the law is there in place so that we can properly through the MLS licenses.
Now I'm assuming that because of the way the bill is written, that these are just adding definitions.
Right.
So
It
so
is.
the law already references them. They're just not in the definitions.
Right. So we just want to make that change into the law and include these types of businesses.
Okay. Okay. Well, the committee will look at it much more. The
Okay.
committee will review it because it is pretty substantial when you're just inserting a new definitive class into existing law.
Okay.
So, okay. Thank you. Senator Espaldon, did you have a closing statement on that?
No, maybe a question. If we don't do this and pass this bill, what are the ramifications?
We're not in compliance with the national the nationwide mortgage loan system. And they monitor us, so they would know.
Well, I think what it would mean is that those servicers wouldn't be able to provide the service here.
Right.
Right. I mean, not being in
We-
compliance doesn't mean we're going to get fined or anything. It just means
No,
that
it
those
just means
entities...
we can't license them come
Right.
on that certain day.
They won't be able to do business here.
Right.
Right.
And if they don't do business here, then in terms of, and I'm not as well versed as the chairman on this one, but if they're not licensed to do business here and they're the servicers, then how does that affect like the originators and whatnot?
It'll drive the secondary market.
Yeah.
Okay.
The originators are licensed. It's just
Right,
they're
right.
probably going to have to take over
Okay.
the system themselves.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Art.
Thank you.
Are you done? All right. That'll conclude the hearing on Bill 370, and that will exhaust all the items that we have on the agenda this afternoon. We'll go ahead and continue to receive testimony, both oral and written, to the committee. They can also be submitted to my office via email at senatorsnicholas@gmail.com or via hand delivery to the legislature's mailroom or Suite 407 in the DNA building in Aguon, Aguon. And that will conclude our hearing for today. We'll go ahead and adjourn at 5:20 this afternoon. Thank you all very much.